An interesting fact about festival observance in the home is that the two most observed festivals among Jews around the world at home are Pesach and Hanukkah. And there's a number of reasons for that, even though we have three pilgrim festivals, Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuot. It's Pesach and Hanukkah which are most observed in the home. And one of the key reasons for this is the focus on children. During Pesach, children are required to participate in the Seder, and there are certain elements specifically for them, particularly Manishtana. There's even reference to the 4 children who ask questions. And the children are encouraged to stay awake all the way through the Seder until the very end, when they are meant to look for the Afikoman and then ransom it back to the person leading the Seder who can't finish the Seder until everyone's had the Afikoman. And on Hanukkah, it's a children's festival in many people's minds because we play dreidel, we eat chocolate coins, and we give gifts. What's really interesting about both of these festivals is that they're not actually specifically for children. In fact, the mitzvah of Chanukah, the mitzvah of Pesach, and the different mitzvot associated with them are for adults too. And there are, of course, ways to bring in family members of all ages. And of course, lighting Hanukkah candles and having your own Chanukiah and getting gifts is a really exciting thing, especially for young people. Although traditionally, the giving of gifts in Judaism is not at Hanukkah, it's actually on Purim. And so what's happened is these two festivals of Pesach and Hanukkah have become very strongly focused on children. But they're not just for children. And the messages of both festivals are very relevant for adults too. And we have to be really careful not to only tailor our festivals towards children, because if we do, when the children grow up, they have no interest in them anymore. In fact, both Pesach and Hanukkah are connected through the idea of liberation. The Israelites were redeemed from Egypt by God by a series of extraordinary signs and wonders. They were liberated from oppression, but in Hanukkah they had to fight for it. They had to fight against the oppression that, according to the common telling of the book of Maccabees, they had to fight against this oppression that stopped them from observing Judaism as they wanted. In fact, the tale of Hanukkah is much more complicated than that. That's the version that we tell the kids. In fact, the version for adults involves essentially a Jewish civil war between zealots and Hellenists and assimilators. And so it's actually far more complicated and nuanced. But there is an overarching message that I think is important for all ages. And that message is about hope in darkness, hope in dark times. Judaism is a profoundly optimistic religion. We believe in a better time. We believe that right now isn't good enough, and that it's up to us to help redeem the world. In Reform Judaism, there's a very strong focus on tikkun olam, on repairing the world. And that's our task, our sacred task, to help perfect the world. We can't wait, as the Israelites did for hundreds of years, for God to redeem us. We have to be like the warriors in Hanukkah, redeeming the world, fighting for rights, fighting for freedom. In fact, the message of Hanukkah, it's interesting because it started on December 25th this year for the first time in a very long time. And so lots of people try to connect Hanukkah and Christmas. And there are some similarities, but there are also some very profound differences. And I really encourage you to join us tomorrow morning in our Torah study, where we're going to be looking at exactly that. But for tonight we have our Hanukkah lighting at the beginning of our Shabbat service. Before we light the Shabbat candles, we traditionally light our Chanukiah. And you want to be there on time. You really do. There are some people who often arrive late for the service, and then they've missed this wonderful ritual where we have loads of families who come and light their Chanukiah, and we have filled tables with Chanukiot, and it's really very special. And I think it serves as an important message that for us, as I shared in my sermon last week, for us being a lamplighter can be quite exhausting. The idea of going round and lighting the lamps in the darkness and bringing light to the world is in some sense the task of the Jew. We are meant to be or lagoyim, a light to the nations. And yet, as we get older, that can be more and more exhausting. And so we have to remember that it's not actually an individual task, it's a communal task. We as a community need to be a light to the nations. And so we need every individual in our community to help bring light. And we can all bring light in very different ways. Before our service tonight, we're bringing light very literally in terms of lighting our menorahs, our Chanukiot. But we can bring light in other ways. Some people in our community have been helping for the interfaith community shelter. And we have a few more days that we're helping this winter break. And we really do need your help to bring light to those people. There was a shocking statistic of the number of homeless people who died in Santa Fe this year. We have a responsibility to help reduce that number. And we can do that by providing food, by providing shelter, by helping the interfaith community shelter. We, as a community, are helping this winter break, and we need your help, either financially if you can't cook, or to come and cook and come and serve the food. And please keep an eye out on the e-digest for that. But there are other ways that we can be a light to the nations as well. We can stand up in the face of oppression. We can stand up in the face of those who do wrong and say, not in my name. This is not something that we tolerate in decent society. Society grows, it learns, it improves. That's the essence of Reform Judaism, that we stand on the shoulders of giants and therefore we're able to see things that they couldn't see. We have the possibility as Reformed Jews to make the world a better place, based on our tradition, to develop it, and particularly to focus it on making sure that our Judaism isn't just in the sanctuary, but is also life-changing, world-changing for those around us. And in Torah, right at the very beginning, darkness is upon the face of the deep. Darkness is the natural state of things, which is very interesting because of the laws of thermodynamics and the second law of thermodynamics saying that everything ultimately breaks down to entropy. Torah said that thousands of years ago. We have a task, which is to push back against that darkness. That is the natural state of things. We have to help bring light. And that can seem exhausting. That's why it's so important that we're together in community, especially over Hanukkah. We can look at the injustices in the world, the injustices that we faced and fought against, and now the injustices that other people face and that we need to fight against as well. Hanukkah is not just a time for lighting candles and giving gifts and playing dreidel and eating chocolate coins. It's also a time for dedication, dedicating our lives to helping get rid of injustice in the world. That's what the Maccabees did, and that's what we need to do. So I encourage you to join us for our Kabbalat Shabbat service tonight, which starts with that Chanukiah lighting, that communal Chanukiah lighting, and it's a really wonderful thing to see. We also have a baby blessing and Pidyon Habat, a redemption of a daughter, in our service today as well. Please come and join us for that, as well as Torah study tomorrow, and of course our service tomorrow, so that we can be gathered together as a community, so we can give light to each other and ultimately give light to the world. I wish you Chag Sameach and Shabbat Shalom.